In this example, we are asked to find the angle between these two vectors, 2, 3 and negative 6, 4. Well, in order to do this, I need to point out that, well, okay, first of all, let me label these as u and v. And now that I've done that, let me distinguish my v from my u here. Now that I've done that, I will point out that the dot product between two vectors, u and v, is equal to the magnitude of u times the magnitude of v times cosine of the angle between them. And the angle between them is exactly what we're trying to find in this example. Well, first of all, I'll solve for cosine of theta. So this becomes u dot v over the magnitude of u times the magnitude of v, which is equal to cosine of theta. So first things first, I will go ahead and calculate this. I'll do the magnitude of u and the magnitude of v off to the side. So the magnitude of u is going to be equal to the square root of the sum of the squares. So I will do 2 squared plus 3 squared. Simplifying this, I have the square root of 4 plus 9, which is the square root of 13. And that's as far as I can simplify that. Now, as for the square root of v, this is going to be negative 6 squared plus 4 squared. So 36 plus 16, which is equal to the square root of 52. Now, can I break that down any further? Yes, I can. This is actually equal to the square root of 4 times 13. Now, I saw that as 2 times 26, and then 26 broke down again, so I got 4 times 13. And the square root of 4 is 2, so this is 2 times the square root of 13. Cool. Now I'll go ahead and calculate this over here. So if I do u dot v, remember that means you multiply the corresponding components and add up the result. So this would be 2 times negative 6 plus 3 times 4 all over the square root of 13 times 2 times the square root of 13 equals cosine of theta. Okay, well, 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. 3 times 4 is plus 12. And then down here, we've got 2 times the square root of, well, 13 by 13 is 13 squared equals cosine of theta. But now I notice that, well, negative 12 plus 12 is just 0. And then this is 2 times 13, square root of something squared is just the thing. But it doesn't really matter because 0 over anything, as long as that thing's not 0, is itself 0. So this is really just 0 is equal to cosine of theta. And in fact, if I had done the dot product first of all, then I never would have even needed to calculate the magnitudes of these two vectors because I know the result's 0. Unless, of course, the magnitude of the two vectors came out to be 0, but that would be impossible unless everything here was 0. So, nonetheless, we have that 0 is equal to cosine of theta, and so I simply ask myself, cosine of what gives me 0? Well, there's two possibilities. Theta could be pi over 2. Remember from your unit circle that cosine of pi over 2 is 0. Or it could be 3 pi over 2. And how do I know what the difference is? Well, let's say I draw a line here. Suppose that that's my u. I'm not too concerned about which way everything's pointing here. And then draw another one at an angle of pi over 2. Well, that would be perpendicular, like this. So notice, if something has an angle of pi over 2 between it in this direction, then it would have an angle of 3 pi over 2 between it in that direction. So we'll just take the smaller of the two angles. Theta is equal to pi over 2. But it's important that you have it clear that that's what's going on and why we just take the one angle. When you're talking about the angle between two lines, you just take the smaller of the two to describe it, because if I want to know what the bigger angle is, I can always just figure it out from the smaller angle and the fact that it's two lines. And that's what they asked us to do. Determine the angle between the two vectors u and v. And that we have done. It is pi over 2, and that is this example.